What do most older adults want? Purpose, community, and peace of mind. What if I told you there was an option that provides all of that and the security of healthcare if and when you need it at a fraction of the market rate? Would you be interested in learning more? If so, tune in to our next show where we talk about a 100-year-old solution that is just now reaching the tipping point. Stay tuned. Welcome to Seniority Authority, the podcast where I track down experts to answer your questions on aging. Thanks to our show sponsor, the RiverWoods Group, Northern New England's largest family of nonprofit retirement communities, where active adults find community, purpose, and peace of mind. Visit riverwoodsgroup.org. Now, let's hear from today's guest. Welcome to Seniority Authority. I'm your host, Cathleen. In the world of living options for active adults, there's one concept that has been quietly growing and spreading across the country for 100 years. It's a highly misunderstood idea, yet one that is just right for the growing population of boomers edging into retirement. This option provides control, community, connection, and peace of mind when it comes to healthcare. So the Continuing Care Retirement Community, or ccrc, or Life Plan Community, is a smart option to investigate. There are more than 1,900 across the U.S., and they are an exceptionally stable industry. More than 80% are not-for-profit organizations, either faith-based or community-based. A very few amount are for-profit. My guest today, who is also my boss, Justine Vogel, is president and CEO of the RiverWoods Group, Northern New England's largest family of ccrcs and our show sponsor. An accountant by training, Justine has spent more than 20 years at RiverWoods, creating a family of communities. And she and I have done a lot of presentations together. So you may be seeing some interrupting during this conversation. Justine, I am so glad you are finally joining Seniority Authority.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to the podcast. So for those people, and I count most of our listeners that don't know about RiverWoods, what was the original inspiration for RiverWoods?
The idea for RiverWoods really came from two outstanding women, really extraordinary people, Mariana Hatch and Rosemary Coffin, two ladies who, one lived in Durham, New Hampshire, one in Exeter, New Hampshire. They didn't know one another, but they wanted to make a difference. They had both cared for aging parents, and frankly, they just knew there had to be a better way. Having your adult child care for you. Now, being an adult child, I know how unpleasant that might be. They knew there had to be a better way, so they found it. They worked at it for 10 years. They got turned down by tons of organizations that they had hoped would sponsor them and come forth with an idea. They found the idea of a ccrc through a developer and worked for, they got 10 years of trying to figure out what to do and 10 years of trying to get the project sponsored and borrow a whole ton of money to build our first campus. But, the basic, was the inspiration. It was to help other people. And that's what we do today.
I think that's incredible that these two women who were housewives, their husbands were faculty members, one at UNH and one at Phillips Exeter, they persisted and they got a small little grassroots group. So this is really a homegrown community.
Yeah, and the reality is that's in our blood. It's in our veins today, that concept of persistence and that concept of no matter how big you are, you have to feel small. But as the world gets more complex, we find that being a little bigger is a little better.
So let's step back and just explain, now that we know how RiverWoods was created, what is a ccrc, or a continuing care retirement community? Is it real estate? Is it a condo? What is it?
Yeah, it's neither of those, honestly. It's an insurance company. We like to say it's the best looking insurance policy you'll ever have. So the idea is that when a person starts to think about hey, I might need some services later on in life, or I need to plan for what might happen later in life, or just I don't want to be a burden to my family. I want to stay in control of my own decisions. It is an opportunity to move in when you are independent and healthy, and then have the insurance of CCRCs have a healthcare unit attached to them. So either assisted living or memory support or nursing care that allows someone to receive a higher level of care should they need that as they go through their stages of living. And the concept, the reason we're an insurance company is you receive those higher levels of living at a deeply discounted rate versus the market price. So the common misconception for seniors may be, I don't need that yet.
Mm-hmm.
Really, what happens is sometimes people wait too long. So you miss out if you wait too long.
And just like any insurance, you have to move in and start the insurance when you're healthy before you need it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So folks move in when they live independently. Typically, I mean, we do, occasionally CCRCs, us and some of the other just slightly less good ones around the country, they will allow for, direct admission into their healthcare centers for folks who may have missed the boat on the insurance part of the product. But you move in when you're independent and healthy, you have a fantastic life. You get a deeply discounted health care, long-term care provided to you when you need it, when and if you need it. But even better, it's provided by people you know in a place that you know, and it feels like home.
Yeah, sure. And you just walk down the hall. So in these New England, I mean, now we're in a great time of year, but in these New England winters, it's tough to drive 45 minutes away. And I would think it's good for spouses because you don't necessarily age or get ill at the same time, right?
Yeah. And often, with dementia, with one senior and a married couple can often really take down both members because you have one person who's really doing as the caregiver and one person who is, having the cognitive challenges, and that one disease can take them both down. Whereas, you have the benefit of, we had a resident years ago and her husband had some challenges and needed to move to our assisted living side, and her house and his house. So Catherine would say, oh, I'm going over to his house for a little while, or he's coming over to my house for the morning. And you have as much of your regular life as you can. And the conversation we had at the time was, you don't get married to be a caregiver, be a spouse. And I think organizations like ours, communities like ours, allow married people to maintain their roles, give as much care as you want, but not more than you can physically or mentally bear.
Well, I think that's huge. And, being an accountant and starting off our conversation, we talked about why this makes sense from a financial standpoint, because, the most expensive care you're going to need is at the end of your life. And if you move into a CCRC, that is predictable, which everybody wants to know how much is it going to cost. So it's a smart financial decision. But what you just touched on is that it improves your quality of life when you, the spouse, or you, the adult child, are not the caregiver for your parent.
Yeah, it improves your life even if your parent never needed it, just because the worry part, we take away worry. When you live here, you're taking away your own worry, your spouse's worry, your kids' worry, all of your loved ones, because it's handled. That was a big decision that you made for your life. You don't have to continue to perseverate on it.
I think this is a fantastic option for people who are planners. And I find that there's a lot of conversation around money and investment. Do you have enough money for retirement? And a lot of focus on that, a lot of advertising about that, but not a lot of conversation about what are you going to use that money for? How are you going to live your life once you've done the cruises and done the travel? And what is your life going to look like if and when you need care? And it could be a lack of imagination on some people's parts if they can't imagine they would ever need help.
Yeah. And, just think about it. Once you have that handled, and you have the financial side of that handled, and not just the how much, but also the where and when, or maybe not the when. I guess that's a predictive ability we don't have yet, but the where and who, you can then enjoy those other things more because you're not worried about, I have to save this penny and that penny. You can travel a little more and you can engage a little more. So, we like to think, I come to work every day thinking we make people's lives better. That's an opportunity that most people don't get in their work lives. And
that's a pretty fantastic proposition for anyone that's looking for a job out there.
Absolutely.
It's a great place, personally. It's a great place to work. And you do know that every single day you're changing lives. And that's
at least we have the opportunity to
have the opportunity.
Yep.
So tell me, how do residents interact with the life of the community? They come in, they're independent, they have their own cars, they have their own schedules. How does living in community benefit them, and how do they interact and change the community?
Yeah. Well, we talked about it reduces their own personal worry, but the residents create the personality of the community. They create the environment. We have a professional set of managers who handle the food service and the healthcare and the finances and facilities management. But the residents are the ones who set the personality. So, within our communities, there are just tons and tons of committees and interest groups. People are engaged in whatever activities they want to be. One of my favorite stories, my father-in-law actually moved into one of our communities, and he's a master's level engineer, mechanical engineer, and a pretty serious dude. And he learned how to watercolor paint.
Oh, wow.
He was really proud of that. So some people learn new skills. Some people continue on with things that they loved all their lives. There's a bridge playing is like a full-on combat sport.
Contact sport.
Yeah, I've never been a bridge player, but apparently that's serious business. But you have people who are really into working out, and we have great fitness rooms. You have people who are really into reading. People who are, it's an opportunity to engage your mind and share what you know. We had residents years ago, 2 residents who had been, I can't even think of the right term for what they had been. It's so far above my brain power, but they gave
research doctors.
No, they gave a class on how to run a nuclear submarine. They were like nuclear physicists, I think.
Oh, great.
I don't even know how to spell that.
A beginner's guide to how to run a nuclear submarine.
Yeah. But they did like an 8-part class. And, and speaking of that, we have residents who we asked them to help us teach our staff in our Exeter campus how to be better managers and leaders and grow within the organization. And they put together a syllabus of classes on financial management and written communication and oral communication and critical thinking, and taught a business management class to folks who were learning to become leaders. So, when you ask the question, how do they interact with the life of the community? They are the life of the community.
Yeah.
And that's what matters.
I love that example of the business management class, because they're teaching RiverWoods staff who perhaps didn't have the opportunity to go to college how to move forward and get the knowledge they need to be a manager. And I think it's in its 6th year of being delivered the business management class.
Yeah.
I love that. And I also, one story stands out to me when I first got here and I was new to the community, was a presidential campaign. And so in New Hampshire, we have all these presidents that come in, and I had a great idea of, we're going to host a presidential debate on healthcare and we'll invite them all. And I got shot down because the residents said, we have a political action committee and we are the ones that call the shots as to who comes to campus to speak. So that to me is a real clear, it's not a paternalistic environment where we decide what our residents are going to like and not like. They are full of ideas and opinions. And
we like to say, 1,000 residents, 1,400 opinions.
Exactly. Yep. So I know the RiverWoods Group has 3 different communities: RiverWoods Exeter, RiverWoods Manchester, and RiverWoods Durham. Is this typical for a system? We start out our conversation with Mariana and Rosemary just creating one building, and now there are 3 buildings in Exeter and 2 more other campuses in New Hampshire.
Yeah. But it's getting harder and harder to be a standalone organization. You started by explaining that many communities, and often the largest systems in our sector, are either faith-based or some type of affinity-based. But there were also many, many standalones, grassroots organizations like us originally. But in the course of the last 27 years that we've been around, it's getting harder and harder to be a standalone organization. Systems offer efficiencies. Healthcare, the delivery of healthcare is getting more expensive. Our world is getting more complex, by the minute. And what a system, or we like to think of it as a family of communities, what that offers is opportunity to get people who are really drawn to doing a few things. Running a business, because even though we're a community and we're people's homes, we have to run it as a business because we make a promise every day. Every day someone moves in, we're making a promise to be here for their lifetime and to be able to keep all our contractual commitments for their lifetime. So we think it's very important to operate in a financially sound way. And that's easier to do when you have people who have broader perspective and who have the learnings of multiple campuses, multiple communities, multiple experiences.
And it also really is driven by the mission, as Mariana and Rosemary created the first community for other people, not for themselves, but for other people.
Yeah.
The mission is to bring this way of life to as many people as possible. And that means growing to meet the growing need.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, the business side of it, organizations in our sector are now more and more either joining a system or developing systems of their own on the business side. But you're absolutely right. The mission is what drives us forward. We're not going to make a good business decision that's in conflict with our mission, and we're not going to make a good mission decision that is a really bad business decision. So it's a balancing act. And I think not-for-profits everywhere tend to have to keep that balance, no matter what size they are or what market they're serving.
And RiverWoods has done well because they're very well rated financially, extremely financially strong. And so, as we all say, no margin, no mission. So you have to have the money to keep it going.
Sound like an accountant there, Cathleen.
Hey, it's been working with you for so long. I now agree that numbers do tell a story. If you're getting smarter, help us reach more minds. Leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Tell your friends to follow us on social or subscribe to our newsletter at seniorityauthority.org. There's a lot of uncertainty around CCRCs. And once we've explained the CCRC concept, there are still many permutations across the country. But we do know that there are generally 3 different contract types. Can you give our listeners a quick overview of what those 3 contract types are?
Yep. Very basically, you have type A, B, and C. So a type C is essentially a rental community where you might have all of the levels of care. So you have the physical plant of a CCRC, but no insurance. So no matter what level of living you are in, whether that's independent living or should you need assisted living or memory support or nursing, you're paying the market price. You have on the other side of that a type A, which has the highest level of insurance, where essentially you pay an entrance fee that generally will be refundable in some percentage. And should you need assisted living or memory support or nursing care, you would receive that at the price you were paying for your independent living apartment. So that's what you spoke to in the beginning, that super predictable cost. If I can afford my apartment, I can afford whatever I might need. And then a type B contract is, not surprisingly, somewhere in A and C. It has a very defined benefit. So it also allows someone the opportunity to be very predictive in their costs, but typically they're going to cost a little bit less upfront and on a monthly service fee basis because the insurance is reduced. It may not be you're paying exactly what you're paying for your apartment, but you're getting a significant discount off of market price should you need healthcare.
That's great. And for our listeners who have questions, please send us the questions to the podcast, info@seniorityauthority.com or .org, and we can get you more detailed answers. If you have, it seems to me when we talk contracts, one fact spurs about 10 questions. We have a free booklet called The Insider's Guide, that Justine and I put together and have been working on almost continually for the past 7 years. And that's available free to anyone that would like it. All you have to do is send us your email and we'll send you a downloadable PDF, and you can find some information on that in the show notes. So I think one thing, the reason we're talking about contracts is it's really important to know what you're getting into and to know what you're paying for. And just as this is a lifestyle choice, it's also a financial choice. And I think what we do is encourage people to understand the contract. Don't get swayed by my friend moved in, or I love the apartment and it's got a great view. You have to know both sides, right? The right brain and the left brain.
Right. Of course, we want you to enjoy your apartment and have friends, but know what you're paying for. So contract is the best advice anyone can give you.
And also you can use your long-term care benefit. It's best in a type B, right?
Exactly. Yes. In a type B contract, they're very designed to work with a long-term care insurance policy.
And what contracts are available at the RiverWoods communities?
In our Exeter and Durham campus, we have type A, and in our Manchester campus, we have a type B. So we try to appeal to the broadest market and allow people to make their own assessment, what level of risk they wish to maintain. And as you said, if they have long-term care insurance, type B is often the right answer for folks financially.
Been at RiverWoods since before it opened. I said over 20 years.
For the dawn of time. Yep.
The truth is, yes, you came in as a teenager. And can you share one of your favorite resident stories?
Just one, huh?
Yeah, or you could a couple.
Well, I will tell you, I think at this point we've had about a half a dozen marriages.
10.
Yeah, 10. Okay. No kids yet. So, but as one of our residents says, don't sell me short. He's still trying. But, my absolute favorite story is like we've had love, but often what we see is new best friends. We see people, maybe they moved in after a spouse died, or they move in as a single person. And you think about making new best friends when you're in 7th grade, when you're 78. And here, you get that opportunity. And so one of my favorite stories is, and this goes back numerous years ago, I was walking out of my office at night. It had been a board meeting night, and it was a beautiful June night. And I was just kind of dragging, it had been a long day. And 3 of our residents were sitting around in patio chairs on their patio outside of Mary's apartment. And I laugh when I think to myself that I can see the picture of their patio chairs, because they're the ones, the metal frames with the straps.
Yeah. Yeah. The old fashioned ones.
Yeah. They were thinking like
the webbing.
Yeah. These are perfectly fine. I'm not throwing this out.
Frugal New Englanders.
Yeah. Yep. Frugal New Englanders. So they're sitting there and they're having a glass of scotch, and they call me over and they're like, Justine, come have a scotch with us. And I'm thinking, I have to drive home. I don't think I could drink scotch if I tried. But they had been up to see Mary's baby sister in Kittery that day and have lobster rolls. And, Mary's baby sister was probably 80. Still Mary's baby sister. And they were planning a trip to Florida together, these 3 women, in February of the next year. And I thought, see, now that's what we do. Like, they're planning for fun. New best friends. They didn't know one another before they moved in. And they're new best friends, someone to travel with. And they were, making fun of Vera because Vera's hip set off the alarm when they were going
the airport.
To security. They just were having fun. They were friends. They were there for one another to talk through the good stuff. You can brag about your grandkids and complain about your daughter and plan for fun and eat dinner together and have a scotch on a beautiful night and think about fun things. Not worry, think about the future. And I thought, that's what we do. We take a burden or 2 away so that you can spend your time thinking about good things. And that visual, that I would say that's probably 22 years ago. And that visual has stayed in my mind every beautiful day. Actually, when I'm on that campus, I think of that story.
That's an awesome story because they're thinking about the positive. They're not
Yeah.
sitting home alone, wondering why their son doesn't call, why their daughter hasn't stopped by, you know.
Actually, their son and daughter are probably like, where the hell's my mother?
Yeah. Well,
Right
that
through
does
their
happen.
phone. Yeah. Yeah.
We do get
I
people
think
to
that's
move in,
great.
then we get their kids calling saying, our phone must not be working. They're never
Oh,
home.
yeah. But that's the truth. They're just life at 80 should be just as fun. Like you've done all the work. You went to school, you bought your house, you raised your kids, you had your job. It should be fun at 80, be unburdened, or 75 or 90, and that's what I like to think we do for people. We take a few burdens away, and that lightness allows people to shine.
One thing that I think is something that people resist. They resist communal living like Riverwoods because they want to be, and here I'm using air quotes, independent.
Mm.
And yet I don't think they're not independent when they're at Riverwoods. Can you counter that argument of, I don't want to move into a community because I want to be independent?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd say, does owning a home make you independent? When now the ball and chain becomes your home. Sometimes you have to have the roof fixed and the driveway snow plowed and the flower bed weeded. Although you have to do that here, but you have to worry about the plumber and the cleaner and making dinner, and that's not independence. That's burden.
Mhm.
We lighten those, and we're not telling anybody what to do. We're just providing opportunities and a cool, fun place to live.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And from my perspective, I am, as Justine will tell you, I am a control enthusiast.
Yes, yes, I've noticed.
Not a control freak, a control enthusiast. I think the advantage of a community like Riverwoods is that you have made all the most important decisions in your life going forward. As Justine said, if you're going to get care, who's going to give it to you, what it's going to cost, where you're going to receive it, and who is providing it. You're going to have a guaranteed private room. So you know all these things. So you're not putting the burden of decision making on your children or your spouse. You're not waiting for a crisis. And in a crisis, we all know we have fewer options. So I think it is a perfect choice for someone who really wants control over the most important decisions.
Couldn't agree more.
And speaking of resident stories, you have a personal resident adventure that you go on every year. Do you want to talk about that?
Oh, sure. Sure. Well, we didn't go last year because COVID, but
COVID.
yeah, there are a group of residents in our Exeter campus who are skiers, and they happen to take a trip up to Sunday River every year. And that I happen to have a ski house there. So I will meet up with them and ski with them and show them my mountain. And it starts out every year with a drink at the bar and just great stories and great fun and a day of skiing. And all the years we've done it, we only had one day that wasn't a really good day. Usually we are blessed with bluebird skies and sometimes cold weather, but just crisp and sunny, and the opportunity to just enjoy the ski mountain with people in their 70s and 80s and 90s who, oftentimes are skiing me under the table. So I'm proud to be with them every year.
And I think that's another example of something you wouldn't do if you were 80, because they're women. If you're
Yeah.
80, a single woman, you wouldn't be driving up to Sunday River by yourself.
No, and
But now
most of
you
them-
meet a whole gang of people.
Most of these folks didn't know one another before they moved in either. So you just find out, oh, you're a skier, I'm a skier. Hey, you want to go on this trip? And all of a sudden, poof, you're best friends.
Yeah, that is just fantastic. What would your advice be to people who are tuning in today who are new to this concept and are a little intrigued? What would you suggest that they do either for themselves or for their parents?
I think well, obviously, my best advice would be find out more. If you're in the New Hampshire area, obviously find out more about us anywhere around the country. But like Kathleen said, there are 1,900 CCRCs around the country. And I'm a believer in this concept. I'm a real believer in Riverwoods, but I'm also a believer in the concept because it is, I suppose you could be lonely in a CCRC, but you'd have to really work at it. and lonely is never fun. So I would say don't be afraid. Take control of your life. Make it the kind of decision that says, I'm putting myself first, taking the risks off the table so that I can enjoy my life to the fullest for as many years as I have. And when you do that and you join community, you have the opportunity to matter. You have the opportunity for interaction, and community at its deepest level is really those two things: mattering to other people and having other people matter to you. So
Mhm.
yeah, I'd just say take a risk, find out, keep thinking, keep learning.
Yeah, because it doesn't take anything to go check out a website, go visit a campus. Um, I know in the show notes we'll have the link to RiverWoods Group, which is RiverWoods Exeter, RiverWoods Durham, and RiverWoods Manchester, as well as Leading Age. So Leading Age is the industry association that we are included in, and you can go to Leading Age, type in your state, and that will populate a number of CCRCs. To be clear, we welcome everyone.
No matter where you
Not
live.
just those in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
We had a couple move in last week from California into a cottage, sight unseen. They were tired of the California wildfires and of the water situation and of the tax situation. And they did their research, realized New Hampshire is generally one of the top rated states to retire in, and found us. And now they're here.
That's great. So they weren't afraid. Good for them.
Exactly. Exactly. Your suggestion is do the research, start looking. Because the other factor is, because of the booming demographics, because all of the boomers are edging into retirement, there's often a wait list for CCRCs. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we have a pretty substantial one in our Exeter campus and our Durham campus. So I guess my other bit of advice would be, don't be afraid to act. You can find yourself shut out if you wait too long. So don't wait too long. Everybody has their own. My advice to everyone who's either has a parent in their 70s or 80s or 90s, or is in their 70s or 80s or 90s, is keep learning. Figure out how you want to live your life. And if it is, I want to stay in control, I want to make the major decisions, and I want to be around people, I want to be engaged, I want to continue to matter, then CCRCs in general are a really good option. And it's always best to know. We said this during the whole last year, knowing is better than not knowing. So, it's not going to hurt you to use the Google.
Use a Google. And that it is perfectly aligned with our podcast subtitle, which is Getting Smarter About Growing Older.
Yeah.
And I think just the fact that RiverWoods is sponsoring this podcast, which we've done 15, 18 episodes, this is the only one we'll be talking about CCRCs. That's pretty forward thinking for RiverWoods as well. So it says to me that you're interested in being a thought leader, not just someone who wants to fill the community. You want to really help people enjoy this third chapter.
We're interested, as I said in the beginning, we're interested in helping seniors have better lives. So for a lot of people, we're a great option, but there are other options, and there are many other ways to age and lots to learn. So I hope people are listening along. I'm a little insulted that, you're 15 or 18 episodes in and you finally invited me.
I know. It was not a good move on my part.
I did
my boss sooner. But you didn't rate. I got some other higher powered speakers.
I do actually understand. I've listened to them, and I understand how boring I'm going to be in comparison. So, but I do, the reality is, I'll just say one plug for the not-for-profit world. We're here not to make anyone richer. We're here to meet our mission, and our mission is to provide the opportunity for community, purpose, and peace of mind for seniors and our staff. And if we can do that by helping people learn more, great. We can help them. If we can do that by helping them move into our communities, then great too. But there's no one way to go about getting older. Lots to learn.
Always. And that's a great note to end on. So please, if you're listening, log on to our website, send some follow-up questions. Maybe we'll have Justine back if you ask enough questions.
Fair enough.
That's our show for today. If you enjoyed it, please visit our website, seniorityauthority.org, to submit questions for future shows and ask for Justine to come back. And you could also catch archived episodes. If you have a chance, spread the word and visit us on Facebook and subscribe or rate us on your favorite podcast site so more people can find us. Until then, let's enjoy the opportunity to get smarter as we grow older. Thank you. Thanks to our show sponsor, the RiverWoods Group, Northern New England's largest family of nonprofit retirement communities, where active adults find community, purpose, and peace of mind. Visit riverwoodsgroup.org. That's our show for today. Did it spark a question? If so, send us your questions at seniorityauthority.org and we'll track down the answer. Meanwhile, don't forget to subscribe, like us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube, and rate us on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, let's get smarter about growing older.